Okay, so this is just a quick video sort of explanation of the final project. And I just wanted to kind of dictate this rather than just typing a million things in Canvas and email, so that so I can give you some advice, and some further sort of instructions on how this is going to go. So here I am on our Canvas page, and um, one thing you should do probably before anything else is watch the lecture video. So this is the only portion of all of this stuff that's an actual sort of lesson, I guess. And in this video, I just give you a little history of programming and do a little bit of an orientation into Scratch in terms of how to download Scratch and where what website to go to, how to download it, and what it looks like and the functionality and basic stuff like that. So watch this first for sure. As usual, these are just slides that are in this video, which there probably isn't a whole lot you need to scroll through these for. Maybe just the link. There's a link in the video that you can either just Google, or if you want, you can grab it from the slides here. But okay, after you do that, in terms of material, what you see next are several videos and code, as I'm calling them. And each of these is a video, if I click on one of them, um, that is a video of me doing what I usually do, which is voicing over. Here you can see. So each of these videos is me making a program, me making a little game or a little sample code or whatever. And I show this to you just to say, obviously, you can click on this to watch me make make whatever I make. And what I'm doing in these videos is I'm taking you sort of step by step through an orientation of the functionality of Scratch. So so watch these. I would say is probably the next thing you should do. Notice, so for every video that I make, and there already are 3, and there'll probably be one more, so maybe 4 videos total. I'll always also post sort of above the video right here. This is the file that I save at the end of making each of these little programs. So if you want to know, I mean, you could probably just recreate it by watching the video and grabbing the pieces that I use. But if you don't want to do that, this actually, you can open this or download this and open it up in Scratch, and it'll be exactly what I did in these videos, sort of already done for you. So if there's stuff you want to sort of steal from these, which is totally fine, um, this is the code. Or to be honest, none of these are all that complicated. You could probably just watch the video and get them. Okay, let me go back to the module here. Right, so watch the intro video, watch several of these. Like I said, there'll be one more. So the first video is on just making the cat, which is the sort of icon for Scratch, do some basic movements. And then the next 3 videos, there'll be one more in this group, are me developing a Pong game, right? Pong is just sort of a game where you bounce a ball around. Well, anyway, it's explained in the video. So there's a series of 3 videos here that'll be here. So watch those. I don't know. Each of these 3 I think they're all less than an hour, and this is less than an hour as well. I'm pretty sure. So watch these guys, including the third one, and then maybe start thinking about your project and the components that you're going to put in it. You could probably just, I'll explain enough in this video that you'll have some sense of what you're trying to do. But when you come back to Canvas, most of the stuff for the project is here in the tab here for Final Project. While I'm on the topic, since this is present, remember that there is an optional final exam. So actually, sorry, I'm going to take a quick detour and say a few words about that. And I'm emailing this to you as well, but the final exam is optional for those of you who might be interested. So you right now have 2 exams in your in Canvas in the gradebook, and those are averaged to come up with 70% of your grade, right? So exams count for 70% of your grade. So right now you all have 2 exam scores in there, and so that's your exam average. If you'd like a third exam to be in there to be of equal weight to the other two, obviously to hopefully pull you up, then you should take the final exam. If you're happy with your grade or with your exam average, I'd say don't take it, because if you score poorly on this final exam, you may actually end up bringing your grade down. So, but if you're interested, it'll be a traditional paper and pencil final exam. I know I've met with some of you during the semester in person, and I think to an extent sometimes the format of these things is not necessarily the best. Having an online quizzes and exams is not always necessarily your best opportunity to show that you know what you're doing. So this will be traditional, just paper and pencil exam. It will be cumulative for the course, nothing from this scratch and programming stuff we're doing, but from exam 1 and exam 2, everything is included. To try to sort of make it similar to your usual testing environment, you can bring your laptop and you can use everything on Canvas just like always, including the circuit applet if you find that that's helpful. And you can bring any paper, notes or materials you might have. So if you have been taking notes all along, or you make study notes or whatever you've got, or you just, your other, whatever, anything you want to bring that's written, that's fine too. I will just say from a practical perspective, if you plan on watching videos, some of the lecture videos during the exam, please bring headphones. I can't, you're going to be taking this with my other classes. I teach the 3 other classes, so obviously I can't have you playing, sound during an exam. So if you do feel like you need to listen to videos or rewatch some of the lecture videos with sound, please make sure you bring headphones. So the format of when will you do it, these are the 3 time slots that I'm giving you exams in this semester. They're all written there for you. So you can pick any one of those 3 times to come and do this exam. I'll give you the full 2 hours. I don't think you'll need it, but so you don't have to tell me or sign up or anything like that. You can just show up at any one of these 3 time periods to take the final exam. All of these are before the final project is due. So unfortunately, the timing is such that I obviously can't grade your final project in advance of the exam. So you're going to have to take a little bit of a leap of faith as to whether or not you think you'd score better on a final exam than maybe you have on the first 2 exams. The format is probably helpful. I'll just say that much. Not that I can't obviously guarantee you're going to do better, but if you find that you feel like a lot of the things you messed up on the first 2 exams was just because of the format, then I'd especially say it's not a bad idea to do this final, or at least I'll be able to see what you did. So anyway, the format of the questions though and of the exam will be similar. It won't be multiple choice and things like that. I'll be asking you to say, oh, okay, fill in a truth table, and I'll just ask you to do it, just fill in the true falses. Anyway, it'll be a same topics at least, and sort of same style of questions, but maybe a slightly different format. Okay, so that's the deal with the final exam. If you have questions or aren't sure what you should do, you can send me an email and I could probably give you some advice. You know you better than I know you, though. So if you kind of feel like, what, I think I have a C average on my exams so far, and I think I'm going to do a good project that'll pull my grade up a little bit, I'm going to be just happy with that, then by all means don't do a final. Okay. So you have to take it during one of these periods. If you do happen to be very unlucky and have exams during all 3 of these periods, send me an email and we'll come up with some other alternate time. But I really do have to stick to these 3 because I don't, there's 22 of you, so I don't want to have to give the exam at 22 different times. So try to come to one of these 3 if you can, if you're interested. Okay, so sorry for that side trip. So back to the project, right? So the project is worth 20% of your grade. So let me click on Final Project here. So there's an assignment sheet which describes a lot of details, which if this was an in-person class, I would, of course, probably hand out and say, here's the details of the project. But let me at least just run through the basics here. So the purpose of this project, right, is to give you the experience of writing a program without having to know a whole lot about programming. Programming is very, I don't know what the right word is, but it can be certainly be very difficult, but it's also sort of very technical. The kind of program, and after you watch the videos, you'll realize that we're doing isn't quite so, I don't know what the right, stuffy, I guess. It's sort of, cool, or it's at least a little more forgiving. But nonetheless, it is a difficult um, um, project that you're setting out to do, which is to make a video game. So there is a lot to it, but this is a nice and sort of important feature of the course. So um, you're going to watch the videos, or hopefully you've already maybe watched the intro video to the project to know that Scratch is the language that we're writing or is the interface that we're writing our programs in, our games in, and that's the website for Scratch. It's a product put on by MIT. Um, so details of the assignment are as follows. First, one thing you have to do is send in to me a proposal for your game or for your project. And mainly the reason I'm doing that is just to help you out, because if you wait until the weekend before this is due to start, you're going to be dead, because there's no way you can churn out in 1 or 2 days, even if you're working at full steam ahead. You're going to run into problems, and you're going to need probably help from me or from a tutor or just from yourself in terms of stepping away from it and coming back the next day to try to look at it and things like that. So mainly I'm asking you to do a proposal so that you've thought quite a bit and maybe even started to create your game by sometime next week, rather than waiting until it's very close to it being due. So please send me a proposal by Wednesday the 6th at midnight. There's a space, I'll flip back to Canvas for a sec, right? So there is a space for you to upload it here in Canvas in Project Proposal. So, and when you click on Project Proposal, I'll show you this now. This is just a file that has some questions, some basic questions about, what kind of game are you going to make? Well, here, I'll open it. What's the general idea of the game you're going to make? You say, oh, okay, I'm going to make a basketball game where I've got a player who's trying to shoot baskets, and the player gets points if they make the basket, and if they miss, they lose a life, and, if they have 5 chances or 5 lives, and, if they exhaust through all that, they die, or the game is over anyway. Okay, so describe your game in general. Describe the characters in your game and maybe how they might change. Costume changes, which is part of what the coding allows you to do. Maybe you want to describe those. One requirement is that you make the game have different levels. And by that I mean probably, sort of a harder or at least a different level that you would maybe move to after you beat the first level. So how do you, what's your idea of what level 2 and maybe level 3 and maybe more would look like, or how would they be different? Randomness is an important thing that has to be included, so describe maybe how you would use that. This will all make more sense after you watch the videos, but and then maybe if you've already done some sort of exploring and have taken some ideas from elsewhere, which is fine, maybe describe where those ideas came from. You might not have anything to say for this last one, but okay, so this is, again, mostly just designed to make you think about this and to make you watch the videos this week and think about your game and your project before you sort of launch into it, and also to give you a little bit of a pad to say, okay, this is my intention, I'm going to put it down so that at least I have an idea that I can start working on when I go to start trying to create the game. All right, so fill that out, just in Word, I guess. I mean, you can print it out and write it in if you want. But just type in your responses to those ideas and just upload that into Canvas, and I'll give you some quick feedback. Oh, this sounds like a good idea. Maybe think about doing blah, blah, blah. Or maybe if you're kind of headed towards a bad spot, I'll probably give you some advice like, ooh, maybe don't do that. Maybe do this instead, or whatever. Okay. You shouldn't, and I put this line in here just to say, don't kill yourself with like, okay, I'm going to do a basketball game, and then you start it, and you're like, oh, you know what, that's too hard. I'm going to do, a Super Mario sort of game. Oh, that's too hard. I'm going to, I mean, that's okay if you have those thoughts, but try to sort of flush that out as early as possible. You don't want to be, again, waiting until the last minute to decide, oh, wait, the idea I had was too hard. Um, and I promise I'll give you some feedback to try to steer you in the right direction from your proposal. So don't vary drastically from your proposal. If you really, really need to, maybe send me a new proposal. Just email it to me. Okay, your project is due, your completed project is due by Monday the 19th at midnight. So, and you'll upload it through Canvas. Um, that is the deadline. So you do have to have it completed by then. Obviously, if you have it done earlier and want to upload it earlier, you're welcome to do so. Um, and I have to turn your grades around reasonably quickly, so I'll grade it, in the next day or two after that. And if you've taken the final exam, the optional final, I'll have that graded as well, and we'll be all set. So, um, so what should your project be? So generally, people kind of do. You can do whatever you want. Whatever sort of idea you have for whatever sort of game or project you have is fine. Like I said, I'll give you sort of an okay message when you submit your proposal. Um, and not that this probably goes without saying, but please make sure it's not in any way vulgar or offensive, which I'm sure it wouldn't be, but just kind of make sure you don't do anything that you wouldn't want to show your parents. Um, so, what do typically people do? Sort of one of two things. Either a game, and that's what most people probably end up doing. And a game could be a puzzle, it could be some sort of action game, it could be a sort of role playing game. Now, obviously, famous games are way more complicated and involved than something you're going to make. But you could still have a character who's, walking around and trying to, beat up bad guys or whatever. So in that sense, sure, it could be sort of a game like that, maybe a role-playing game as we would call them. It could be something like Pac-Man. Could be something like you're trying to shoot stuff. You guys probably don't know what Space Invaders is, but a basic game where you're just sort of trying to shoot aliens. Frogger, maybe you guys know that. It's a guy trying to get a frog trying to get across the street and avoid getting hit by cars. These are often actually really good games, Frogger type games. Okay, whatever, right? So lots of different sorts of games. And you guys know, I mean, think about your cell phone and think about games you play on your cell phone. Those are sort of the speed of games you might consider. Now, having said that, are you going to make, Angry Birds or Candy Crush or something like that? I mean, power to you if you do, but in no way does it need to be that complicated. Now, could you make sort of a primitive form of those games? Maybe, right? Could you make a primitive form of Angry Birds? Yeah, you could. And don't feel bad like, oh gosh, I made a crappy version of a really, sophisticated thing. That's probably reasonable for this project. On the flip side, if you're going to do a sort of very basic game, make sure it's actually, jazzed up. So that it doesn't seem like, okay, you took an hour or two the night before it was due to just throw this together. Anyway, okay, so games is a popular way to go. Sports games, I often find people make like soccer games, a person trying to kick a ball into a net sort of thing. Anyway, the other type of thing that people make is maybe a little less of a game and a little more sort of a story. There should be some interactivity, so if you've got someone who's sort of trying to maybe solve puzzles or things like that, where there's maybe a story, this is also a good option. So, but to be honest, I mean, if you have something that's outside this realm and you think you'd like to do it, that's fine too. So it doesn't have to be one of these categories, and I'll give you some feedback when you send me your proposal. Grading. So I don't want to read. I'm not going to read this entire list to you. When you get sort of, I don't know, midway through, perhaps making your game, come back and look at this list. These are here just to sort of try to make sure you are fully exercising the capabilities in Scratch. So come back and read this later. There's what, 10 things here? You're going to accomplish most of this without even trying. So you're going to have sounds probably, and you're going to probably have math or randomness, and you're okay. So probably most of this is going to be a given. But if you don't, right, or if you don't have these things, come back, sort of in the middle, and try to think of ways where you might add them, and just mostly to hopefully make your game a little more interesting or a little more challenging and stuff like that. So come back to these guidelines, but do make sure you satisfy all of them. So grading, how is this graded? I won't read this entire thing to you, but you can read it later. Generally, and it varies from semester to semester. This is my first time teaching this class online. Usually, the Scratch stuff is done in person, and it takes a week or so for me to do my lessons, and then people work on their projects. So there maybe is a little less opportunity for you all um, to interact with me in person anyway. This is my best description of what constitutes an A, B, C, D, or F, based on previous semesters. That in order to get an A, your game should be very good, right, or above and beyond. So by that I mean it looks good, it has good graphics, things move as they should. There's not really any glitches or not too many glitches, um, and and I should say, and your game is interesting. Like I want to play it. I know that doesn't sound like something that is maybe automatically easy to accomplish, but it is. So just think about the user, think about you. Have your friends play it. Say like, hey, what would you guys add to this that would make it better or more fun or more challenging? Um, in theory, I shouldn't be able to beat your game in 10 seconds. Um, it doesn't have to be the case that your game is impossible to beat, but it should be somewhat interesting at the very least in order to score well. Okay, and this sort of goes on down the line of less than stellar levels of work. I'm generally going to be able to tell from playing your game probably for a minute or two how much time you spent on it, and that'll certainly help me to define what your grade is going to be. But these are some general guidelines. I'll look at all of them before I start doing any grading just to get a sense of where the class is in general. But these are some nice general guidelines that have worked in the past. So advice: plan as much as you can as you're watching my lecture videos and me making some games. Jot down some ideas. Don't obviously. So the game that I'm making in my videos is a Pong game, a ball bouncing around. So can you certainly take some ideas from there? Yes, but don't obviously don't do Pong. Don't do the game that we made. That's that would be silly. But do take some ideas, and as you're watching, be like, hey, okay, my ideas I'm going to do. I'll keep coming back to it. A basketball game. But as we do things, and as I do things in my video, maybe make some notes to say, oh, I know I'm going to need to do something like he did in there in order to make the ball bounce, or in order to collect that prize, or whatever. So plan as much as you can, and try to think about, okay, what are the things I'm going to need in order to make this work, and then go to actually start programming. You want to have as much of a plan as you possibly can before you really go to start, assembling your program. That way, it'll help you sort of get it done, and then you can edit. Then you can add more stuff and do all this business. Most importantly, please, and I've already said this, please don't wait until the last minute. I know it's an online class, and I know that kind of sometimes means like, yay, I don't have to think about this for a long time, or at least until it's due. I guarantee that if you don't set aside plenty of time this week, next week, and the week after to work on this, and you just sort of try to do it the night before or even just a few days before, one of two things is going to happen. You're going to turn in something that doesn't meet these criteria that I described up here, and you're probably missing several things, which is going to lead to a very bad grade. Or you're going to sort of do what I'm describing in number two, which is maybe some cheating. So I'll get to that in a second. But I think you probably need somewhere between 20 and 30 hours of work to turn in a really good quality project. I glossed over that piece at the top. If your project is exceptional, I do give extra credit, which I know many of you have asked for all semester. Now, I throw that in there to say, please try hard and please, do good projects. Um, I'm not talking about loads of extra credit, so it's not worth doing something dishonest in order to get it. Um, but do please put in lots of time. Um, and if yours is great and really impresses me, I promise I'll give you a little bit of extra credit in the form of a score that's more than 100. Okay, let me do just very thoroughly address cheating. Um, there is, I'm not even going to lie to you, lots of stuff out there. Scratch, this language we're using, is a whole community. There's lots of people who write programs, who write games, who do all kinds of things with Scratch, and it's all online and things like that. So, of course, can you find a game online somewhere and copy it and send it in and say that it's yours? I mean, it is entirely possible to do that. I promise I will know if you've done that. And I guess I won't say a whole lot more about how I will know that, but um, there are many ways that I will know that you've done that. So please, 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 please don't do that. I sadly have to say, just about every semester, somebody does this. And I have to say it, that if I do catch you with this, you'll fail the course. So it won't just be an F on the project. It'll be an F for the semester, and all kinds of other bad things happen to you. So please, please, please don't do that. Um, Now, since there is so much stuff out there, I'm not going to say you can't, have some ideas that you get from elsewhere. And by ideas, I mean you saw a game that somebody made that seemed really cool. And so the idea for the game, you sort of borrowed and modified. That's fine. However, you should never, ever, ever be copying or taking someone else's sprites or scripts and just sort of doctoring them. Absolutely, that's plagiarism. So absolutely, if you find a game online and are like, oh, hey, I'm going to take this game and take the code for it or take the scripts for it and modify it and kind of make it my own, that you can't do either. So you should never be copying someone else's um, scripts. All right. But yes, if there's a cool idea for a game and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to make a game that does this thing, and I'm starting from scratch, no pun intended. That's fine. All right. So just be really careful here. If I have questions about how you did stuff, I may submit an incomplete for you for this semester, and when the semester comes back, I may have you come in and sort of explain to me how your game works and explain to me where you came up with this idea for something and explain to me, well, what does this code do right here? And if you can't, I'm gonna, that's not gonna be a good moment for any of us. So, okay, so please be careful with that. In the report, which I'll show you in a second, I will ask you to do some citing if you have done gotten some ideas. So I'll get to that with the report. Okay, so to wrap this up, right? So please do ask me if you have questions. Many of you see a tutor. All of the tutors should be well versed in Scratch. I think pretty much all the instructors use Scratch, so whoever they took it with, they did a Scratch project. They might not remember everything in Scratch, but they can probably help you debug. I can help you debug. You are all, if you're on campus and can come in to office hours in person, that's fine. If you need some help, electronically, if you do want me to look at your program, send it to me. So I do need you to email me your code in order to be able to look at it. But I'm happy to give you some advice. And some things are going to be a little quirky, where it's just like, yeah, you know what? You probably just need someone, me or a tutor or somebody else, to be like, oh yeah, the reason this is happening is because blah blah blah. Okay, so, and just as a practical perspective, because unfortunately this happens, save your project frequently. And maybe it's not a bad idea to even save it to more than one place or email it to yourself, just in case. There's nothing worse than, as you guys know, when you have a crash or something and you lose hours and hours of work. It can be obviously very frustrating. Okay, so those are the details of the project. Come back to this and sort of look at it periodically, maybe as you're going through things. So the proposal you're going to do by the 7th. The project itself is due on the 19th. we are. Let me click back on this one more time. Right, so the project itself is due on the 19th by midnight. And you're going to send me in Scratch, the type of file that the Scratch programs are is an SB2 file. I don't really even know what that stands for, but that's all I should need in order to run your game. So both for your final submission here in Canvas and also if you're emailing me questions along the way, send me your file, your game file, so that I can look at it and try stuff. The last thing I'll ask you to do is when you turn in your game, your final project, is to just fill out this quick little report for me. Describe your game, which by the time you're done should be easy to do. Tell me about a feature that maybe you had a lot of trouble with and how you figured it out. Tell me about any resources you might have found on the Scratch website or other sources that you maybe found ideas from. Describe those here. So this is to hopefully talk a little bit about if you borrowed some things or ideas, maybe describe that. Maybe you use tutorials. That's fine. If there's tutorials on the Scratch website that is, how to do stuff, that's fine if you want to watch those and introduce those sorts of things. I would say probably the most important thing, though, is the last piece, which is where I'm asking you to do some citations. Now, you don't have to do any specific formatting or anything like that like you would in an English class. I just want you to describe here, in a paragraph or in a bulleted list or whatever, anything that you used that isn't yours. So if you, and there's stuff that's built into Scratch, you don't have to cite that, that's built in. But if you used a sprite or code or even ideas for these, which for the most part you shouldn't be using other people's scripts, but if you used ideas for scripts, maybe from Scratch website or maybe from a classmate, or you're talking to your tutor and they suggested you blah blah blah, tell me about it here. This isn't bad. You're not in trouble for doing these things, but cite them. Okay, I really do need to get a sense of, okay, how much did you do versus how much did you borrow. Again, if there's stuff that you're not sure about, just ask. I can probably say, yes, include that, or no, don't include that. You don't need to do any sort of specific formatting, and you don't need to tell me, oh, from this website, I got a picture of a donkey because I needed a donkey in my game. You don't have to tell me about that. Okay, I'm going to assume that if a donkey appears in your game, you probably Googled donkey images and you grabbed a donkey from there. That's fine. You don't have to tell me about any of that stuff. And ditto for music or sound effects. Obviously, if you have a song in the background, that's fine. You don't have to say, "Oh, I got this from YouTube" or something like that. That I don't need to know about. But just anything related to the content of your scripts and your sprites and your ideas for things. If it didn't come from you, just tell me about it here. All right. So upload. So fill this guy out probably at 11:30 since you're submitting it at midnight, and include that with your source code with your SB2 file. All right. So that's what you should submit by midnight on Monday the 19th. I'll look at both of these, like I said, and come up with a project grade for the assignment. So. I think that's everything I needed to say about the project and also about the final exam. So if you have any questions, please email me. I'm around this week and next week and the week after too. So if you need to come in and see me, I have office hours most afternoons. I'm around. Just send me an email or pop by office hours, and we can chat. Okay, so good luck with this project. I hope it's fun. Programming and making video games is actually quite fun, even though it is at times frustrating. But it should hopefully be probably more fun than binary numbers and things like that.